Go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Get Tied on the Wizards Thoroughbred Racing channel, brought to you by WizardRacingSports.com. I'm Tom Amello. He's Michael Kipness, the Wizard, and we're here for another show. We've got a couple of items for you. We're going to do a weekly recap, talk about track bias, shippers, got a horse to watch for you. In our At the Quarter Pole segment, we'll be doing a segment on flat bet wagering and understanding the odds board and capitalizing on what the odds board is telling us. A little later on, we'll have an interview with Lisa Lazarus, who is the head honcho from HISA. Michael sat down with Lisa, and Michael, I'm delighted that they were good enough to give time to handicappers, because they've been talking mostly to regulators and track operators.
It was a very candid interview and one that I enjoyed immensely.
And then we'll be back for the Gallop Out. We're going to do a little commentary here on the Whitney Day crowd, the Whitney Day events. Certainly a day of rolling and sad emotions.
Oh yeah, one of the toughest days I've ever experienced at the racetrack.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody will argue with that, but you know, you can't just say it didn't happen, and you got to dignify the folks who and the athletes who were involved. So, weekly recap. Favorites. They're winning 40%. 77 out of 192 races, 40% through August 6th. With the weather, you know, it's fluctuated, Michael, down to about 34, which would be high back in the old days. It used to be 30 to 33, and if you got 40% favorites, people wanted to throw somebody off the roof of the Belmont.
Yeah, it's amazing how it was even higher right before this week. It was like in 43, 44% rate.
That's right. If you're a chalk player, then you've had some good runs. And if you're a non-chalk player, you've been on a streak that you're not happy about. Let's talk the track biases. I know you have an opinion on the Thursday card.
Yeah, well, Thursday and Saturday, for the first time this meet, I detected a bias on the main track. On Thursday, I felt that the rail was off. The best pads were the outside pads. I was amazed on the 3 to 5 shot pipeline that Irad Ortiz made no effort to get off the bad rail. I wonder if he really knows there's a bias or not. And on Saturday, if you weren't 1-2 turning for home, you weren't getting anything, and that really compromised the chances of the heavy favorite Cody's Wish in the Whitney.
Before I talk about shippers, I'd be remiss. You must notice that we are in a different setting. We are on the porch at the Springwater Bed and Breakfast here in Saratoga Springs. They are 1 block from the racetrack, operated by the DiCarlo family. They do a wonderful job here, and this is not a shameless self-promotion for these people. They're good people, and if you're coming to Saratoga, you need a place to stay, call the Springwater Bed and Breakfast. Okay, shippers. Michael, 68% of the winners. Belmont, Monmouth, C.D. Ellis.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen much from anywhere else. You know, Gulfstream, there hasn't been many horses, and most of these winners are from New York.
Yes, most of the Monmouth crews too.
Yeah, I mean, there've been some Monmouth winners, but you know, most of it's like New York racing with a sprinkling of everything else.
That's right. And the other thing is, now we're going to get runbacks, winners or races over the track. And I think many of these horses have either worked, the downstaters who didn't get stalls, they worked at Belmont. But most of the winners are working over the main track or the Oklahoma. So a spa work helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Hot and cold trainers. I was just cursory glance, the name that jumped out at me is Steve Asmussen, whose horses are running well, but who hasn't really hit the winner's circle enough.
No, and you know, he's capable of striking at any time. The big disappointment for me is Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher is about 4 behind Rice and maybe 3 behind Chad Brown. But his firsters aren't running like he's had one winner that I think, Pirate, that won first time out. You know, he usually has a lot more at this time that strike. And he's, you know, at any time these guys' barns could. There's still
Explode.
plenty. There's still plenty of traction left, plenty of races left, and who knows? Pletcher could go on some run.
Right. Trainer Tom Amos, usually a 12 to 13% trainer up here. He's had some live 2-year-olds, and he's winning at 26%.
And he's won with a couple good-looking first-time starters, both sired by Omaha Beach, a new sire that is extremely precocious offspring. They're winning between 45 and 48% first time out of the box.
That's a good thing to know. The Cassie clan, son Norm Cassie is making the scores, and Pops Mark Cassie is on a slow roll right now.
Well, Norm Cassie had a good first-time starter win on Sunday from the rail with Gaffleone at 5-1. But the first-time starter that really knocked my socks off was the Chad Brown firster on Sunday as well. Ways and Means in the race 2 at Saratoga actually ran 6 furlongs in 1:10 and change. Rated kindly, made a bold move to take the lead at the top of the stretch. Drew off for fun. Under a hand ride, won by maybe 7-8 lengths. Could have won by a lot more. Spin away next stop for that one as the probable likely favorite.
Sure, drew off and won for fun. An international good thing that everybody had except me, because nobody calls me, and you were supposed to call me.
I called you, but your line was busy, okay? You were eating lunch. What could I tell you?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have a horse for you to watch. Stay with us. This is Get Tied On. This is the Wizards Thoroughbred Racing channel.
Visit wizardracingsports.com and purchase now. Since 1986, the Wizard has been your source for the best handicapping products for the always challenging Saratoga meet. Wizard selections include analysis and wagering strategies for every race. Wagers are updated after late scratches. The Wizard wagers every day, backing up his opinions with his own money. Visit wizardracingsports.com and purchase now.
Got the horse right here, the name is Paul Revere, and here's a guy that says if the weather's clear, can do.
We're back. Michael, a horse to watch.
Comes out of the race 5 at Saratoga on Thursday, number 2. Once an Eagle, first-time starter from Waterville Lake Stables, trained by Christophe Clement.
Dirt or turf?
Turf.
Turf.
Ran on the turf, homebred from sire Tonalist. Was making a big move, checked in mid-stretch, losing all its momentum. Light urging late when beaten, but galloped out powerfully past the wire. Clearly this was a go, but will act as a nice springboard next time out. Going 2 turns on the turf in the maiden special, New York bred condition. This one is a runner.
We should really make the point that when you're watching sprinters and you're watching the end of racing, Naira has done a much better job of keeping the camera on the gallop out, and you shouldn't look away.
Well, it's actually, to me, one of the most important parts of the race. And this horse galloped out past the field, and when he hit the line, he was 5th or 6th, and he was 5 lengths back. About a 16th of a mile past the wire, he was in front.
Okay.
This is a good one to tab.
Okay, we'll be back for our segment at the quarter pole, where we're going to talk about wagering. Thank you for staying with us, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Amello, Michael Kipness. It's a wagering segment, and we're going to focus on the win place show and vertical exotic place today in this segment. We're not really going to talk about the horizontals until next week. So a couple things that I'd like to say here, sort of to provide a context. Michael, this is a game of opinion. And when folks come to the track, they think they know what they know, and they arrive either with some opinion or no opinion. There are folks who are somewhat schooled in the game. I call them the recreational players. Maybe they play Saratoga once or twice during the meet, or they follow the Triple Crown Racing and the Breeders' Cup. There are occasional recreational handicappers. They too sometimes develop an opinion. And then there's the folks who do an awful lot of work and their entire effort is in developing opinion. Well, opinion at the racetrack, ladies and gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned, is staring at us from the odds board. The odds board represents the collective wisdom of everybody who thinks they know something, and everything that they think they know is factored into the odds board. So my thought here is that if you don't know too much about the game, you can find everything you need to know factored into what's on the odds board, and you can find a way to play. And we're going to talk about that in a second. The odds board is the only constant at every racetrack in the country. Trainers change, the horses change, but the odds board is what it is, and it identifies for the wagering audience 4 types of betting pictures. A heavy favorite, 2 favorites 2 to 1 or less, a balanced race with a favorite, a few clicks to a second choice, and a few clicks to a third choice, and that's a favorite that they don't really love so much, and then a chaos race where you have 3 or 4 horses that are all so close in price, 5 to 2, 3 to 1, 7 to 2, that the crowd can't seem to separate and land where they're supposed to land. Now, Michael, there are ways to bet every race, and we're going to talk about using the odds board initially with or without an opinion as a way to kind of attack a race. Now, you know, you're going to take off your wizard hat here. I'm going to turn you into the mentalist. So I'm going to
the mental case. Am good. It's appropriate.
I'm going to give you a situation. We're going to give you some odds, and you're going to put the envelope to your head and going to develop a couple of strategies for us. Okay. So here we have a heavy favorite board. The favorite is even money, 6 to 5, 4 to 5, heavy favorite. The second choice is 9 to 2, almost 5 to 1, and everybody else is longer. Michael, if you don't know anything and you want to play that race, how could you construct a ticket that would give you a chance?
Give me a field size, approximately.
9 horses.
9 horses. Forget the win bet. Nobody cares about a 4 to 5 shot. Forget that. So what I'm going to try to do is narrow it down to 2 horses underneath that I could find at a decent price to play exactas. So if I can find those 2 horses, I will key that favorite, if I like the favorite, over those 2 horses. So hypothetically, I'm betting $100 in the race. I'll bet 2 $40 exactas on top with the favorite over the 2 horses I like. I don't want to spread any more than 2. And I'll reverse it for $10 because there'll be big enough odds that I'll get at least my money back and maybe show a little profit. We made a horrible mistake a couple weeks ago where I didn't do that, and it was ridiculous, and we ripped up all the tickets. The idea is preservation of capital. That's the best way I would do it. The other bet I might make is a trifecta, where I key that top horse over 3 horses or 2, depending if I do have a third horse, especially at a price. And I will always, my first play, my best friend is the all button.
Yeah.
Because you never know. We're not that smart that we can pick a horse that we can narrow it down to who's actually going to run third. Anyone can run third. We take it from there. I might take my 2 strongest opinions in that race, who I played in the exacta, turn it around over the top horse for, say, 50 cents. If my main play was $1 for half, right? Just to protect myself. But that's how I would play that race.
Okay, so if you had no opinion at all and had come to the track for the first time and understood that that's what the board was telling you, you could figure out how to make those bets for yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
at least the exacta bets. They'd be easy for a new player to make.
Right, and the board, like you said, tells it all. Even the morning line odds maker, who's very skilled, David Aragona here in New York, if he makes a horse 3 to 1 on the morning line and it opens at 8 to 1, most of the time those horses are dead on the board. The board tells you a lot, and in this situation, you gave me one, and that's how I would play it.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you a similar board, but it's a heavy favorite board, but you don't like this favorite at all. And the horse it's still a 9-horse field, and you like a horse who's probably 6 to 1.
That's my play. That's the one I like best, the vulnerable favorite that's getting over bet. If I can narrow it down to a horse or 2, what I like to do is, if I have an opinion on another horse, and it's bigger price than it should be, I'll make the win bet. But what I like to do is the trifecta, because you're going to get a bigger price by knocking out the favorite in the top hole. So I will go sometimes 2 horses on top, say program number 1 and 2, with 3 or 4 in the second hole, and I might throw the favorite in there. I'll respect the favorite if I have some opinion, and then use all in the third hole. It really doesn't cost much for a 50-cent ticket. I might press then, but I'll never have that favorite on top. The key is leveraging that favorite underneath my 2 stronger opinions on price plays.
All right, we're going to move to the second board, which is the 2-horse race. The public has narrowed it down to 2 horses. They're both 2 to 1 or less. You know the rule, ladies and gentlemen. If you choose one, you lose. You choose the other, you lose. So how are you going to bet this? Same 9-horse field, 2 horses, 2 to 1. What do you want to do? What are your options?
That's my weakest opinion, because what do? You make an exacta box, it's underlaid. It's going to be, it's a short number. I don't want to add a third one in that might be, and box the exact. I don't like that play for that race with 2 short price favorites. What I might do, and we'll talk about in a later show, is leverage it in a vertical play, in a play. Horizontal play where we're going to attack the pick 3s or 4s or 5s. You keying on those 2 horses if I feel I have a strong enough opinion. But I don't like that race in that situation.
What about trying to split them?
Then I'm going to have to, if I have an opinion on splitting them, right? It depends. If I like those 2 horses as clear-cut plays in the race, I might do a trifecta, taking 1 with 2 with all, and 1 with all with 2 for less, 2 with 1 with all. Okay. But it's a tricky proposition. I don't like 2 horses that I favor in a race that are the 2 favorites.
Of course. Okay. But you're going to see that, we're going to see that race often, and there are two options. You either pass it because you don't have a strong opinion, or you try and find a way to.
I usually don't pass, but I will look probably for the pick 4s or 5s and see what happens down the road in those races.
Okay, mentalist.
Or mental case.
The third board is the balance board, a clear favorite, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, 5 to 2, 3 to 1, second choice, 9 to 2, 5 to 1, third choice. The crowd doesn't love this favorite like they love the other favorites. And really, this looks like the most likely favorite who could win but might not necessarily win.
Well, again, if my opinion is strong or very strong on that favorite, then I'm keying that favorite in some way. But most of the time, I'm hoping that I have horses against that favorite.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, this meet, I've taken stands in that situation.
Yes, we have.
And have lost many races that way, where the favorite who I had opinion against, has won. That's why 40% this meet.
That's right.
They're winning, and so that's a situation I kind of have to decide. Do I like that favorite or not?
So let me ask you this. Okay, so you've got a soft opinion on the favorite, and the horse you like is 5 to 1. What are you doing?
I will go to the bigger price horse. Sometimes I will look at the horses I have selected second or third, and if one of those horses has gotten away at a price, I will bet that horse. But I put out my selection. I'm superstitious.
Yes.
I don't like to bet against what I give out. So sometimes that'll be the rare pass.
Okay. Well, what we're talking about here, though, is opinion. And
I will go to the bigger price.
And we're not talking, really, we're talking for the audience about how would they play, because they're not producing a sheet and picks.
I would pick the price horse all day long. Bigger the price, I may not make a big bet on it, but if I want action, I get a big price. Nothing like the feeling is a lot different collecting on a horse that pays $30 than one that you won and it paid $4.20.
Absolutely. All right, the last picture that the board shares with us is the picture of the no favorite board, the chaos board. 3 or 4 horses all at the same price. The crowd's confused. The morning line guy seems to have somehow been dismissed by the public. How are we going to get money out of this
I
race?
hope I have an opinion in that chaos, because that's when I make my biggest bets. Because the chaos presents to you a lot of options for big price horses. And you hope that the horse you like is in one of those, because usually you'll get a bigger price in a chaos race than you usually would.
All right, so it's a win bet?
A win bet, maybe a win place bet at 10 to 1 or higher.
Okay.
And one thing I'll do with a big price situation is a wheel. Because if I have an opinion on a 10 to 1 shot and it's a chaos race, I can land a big number on a wheel and back wheel for so if I have a 10 to 1 shot I like, the first play I'll make is a $2 10 all, $2 all 10.
Right.
And then work from there down to the horses that I have contenders.
Well, what you don't want to have happen to you is to maybe make a win bet on a 10 to 1 shot or a 15 to 1 shot. He runs second, and you only use what are the more logical horses, and a bomb comes in, and that exacting comes back on at $50, $200.
You know, that's why the all button in that situation is your best friend.
Okay. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this segment. We'll be followed by our interview section, and that is with Lisa Lazarus of HISA. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the Down the Stretch segment of the Wizards Get Tied On show. It's my pleasure to have Lisa Lazarus here on the show, the head honcho of HISA. Thank you for making the time, because I know your schedule is just nuts.
It's a little busy, but I'm very happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
You know, I was laying in bed the other night, and you know, I lived in Vegas.
Okay.
And I used to go a few times to the Mob Museum, and there was an exhibit, right, of the different. There was an exhibit of a guy named Elliot Hess.
Okay, yeah.
Back in the 20s
Yeah,
and 30s.
I remember that name, yeah.
And Hess, you know, went after Al Capone and all the gangsters during the Prohibition era. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, my job is a handicapper. I research people, I research horses. I did some research on you and your staff. And, you know, I'm saying to myself, you know, Lisa's like the Elliot Hess of horse racing. And we need that. We need that. Tell me, like, looking back on these last 2 years, what's the most, like, because you're not a horse racing person.
No, I'm not.
So what is this craziness that you're seeing? When you look back now, what is it, 2 years?
It's a year and not even a year and a half about,
What, like, when you're like alone and you're thinking, you're going to all these meetings, you're meeting all these people, what are you thinking about this craziness of this industry?
You know, when I first took on the job, I thought to myself, you know, like, I've been in sports regulation forever, you know, NFL, sport horses. And I thought, you know, it's a sport. Sport needs regulation, needs rules, needs an anti-doping program. Like, how different could it be? And actually, it's pretty different. And I think the biggest thing is the spectrum of participants in the industry is so wide and so diverse, you know? So our regulations have to capture, you know, a farrier in Oklahoma, you know, up to the president of the jockey club kind of thing. You know what I mean? And you need to figure out, like, how do we find rules that protect the industry, protect the integrity, the safety of the horses, but don't take away the essence of horse racing and don't take away, like, the joy of it? You know, because we shouldn't be the story, right? We should just be kind of like a shield around the story to keep it safe. So I think, just to go back to your question, I think it's the complexity and the diversity of viewpoints and participants that make it, you know, really unique.
You know, I've been in the game professionally for 40 years. I'm known as the Wizard.
Yeah, I heard that.
More money is bet on what I have to say than anyone, okay? Wow. I educate people. I go back to professionally to the 80s, and I look at this sport, and I say, and you've been involved in the Olympics, in the NFL. I mean, you're a lawyer. I mean, you've seen it all. You've put together this crackerjack Hall of Fame staff. You've made I mean, the greatest thing is that they hired you to do this. You're going to make mistakes. We all know that. It's a learning curve.
Yeah.
But you ever have a sport, first of all, that doesn't have a commissioner?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's absurd, right? I mean, not
a
to
shame,
have,
yeah.
what, name a sport, there's none that
No.
doesn't have a commissioner.
Yeah.
The other thing is, every state has different laws, not just for medication,
Right.
but for licensing,
Right.
So there's no unity. It's like, you would know this analogy for the NBA.
Right.
It's as if that the three-point line would be a
Right.
different distance in
Yes.
every arena.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak for like a population that really isn't ever addressed.
Right.
That takes the back seat to everything. Okay, like I understand that you deal with the horsemen, you
Yeah.
deal with the vets.
Yeah.
But you know what the lifeblood of this game is?
The horse player.
The player.
Yeah.
Without our money,
Yeah, the customer,
without our
sure,
money,
yeah.
there's no game.
Yeah.
There's no breeding.
Yeah.
There's no trainers. There's
Yeah.
no. We
Yeah.
are the ones,
Yeah.
and we are always put as second-class citizens.
Right.
So I'm speaking on behalf
Right.
of the thousands and thousands of horse players
Yeah.
that have to contend with the cheaters in this game, with just there's so many great horsemen, and the amount of cheaters doesn't even amount close to the amount of real
100%, I
hard-working
agree.
horsemen.
Yeah.
So if you can look 5 to 10 years, because it's a 5 to 10 year fix.
Yep, I
it's
agree.
that broken. What would you like to see done in 5 to 10 years from now?
So
What is this picture going to look
Yeah,
like?
what the picture looks like for me is an industry where a horse player looks at, whatever the odds are for the day, or looks at your race card and thinks, the horse that I think is the best, that has the best pedigree, has the best performances, whatever, that's the horse that's going to win. I don't have to factor in like pharmaceuticals and who's doing what and et cetera. That we're going to have a true even playing field and a clean sport, and that people aren't really going to wonder about it anymore. Because, we had a panel yesterday for the Jockey Club Roundtable, and we had Jenna Antonucci and Ron Moquette on the panel. And Jenna was saying, she really feels for the first time, she's an 8% trainer, that she has a real chance, that she's not competing with somebody else's like better pharmacy, for example.
Right.
Now, as you said, that's not going to happen overnight, but I think there's finally like a realization that we actually are finding stuff, because we found, we were told we wouldn't find any doping substances. We're 2 months in and we've got 35 open cases for doping substances. Not medication overages, that's totally different, we treat those differently, but for things that should really never be in a horse. Vasodilators, stimulants, steroids, all of that. So we will find that stuff. You're never going to find all of it, but we'll find enough, I think, that it'll be a disincentive. And so that's what on the anti-doping side, that's what I really hope for the future, because the clean horsemen and the horse players, they deserve that. One last thing I'll say before your next question is that what motivates me so much is, I think last week Ray Pollock put up on his Twitter feed kind of a chart of all the trainers and really horse players that Jason Service stole money from, And that's what I want to prevent, because what our system does is it takes people out right away of the game that are using really bad things, and it doesn't allow for events to happen that can never be turned back, And that's really what I hope for the future.
When I started handicapping professionally back in the 80s, I made my living on the juicers.
Yeah.
Because what I mean by that is
Yeah.
that I'm not the judge and jury.
Right,
Okay?
right.
The game is the game.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
the game.
Yeah.
But my job is to pick winners
Right.
that people are going to bet.
Right.
And you had the Oscar Barreras.
Right.
You had, the names I can just reel
Right,
off
right,
name
right,
after
right.
name. Then comes Jason Service,
Right.
Jorge Navarro.
Right.
Now, I know you have the pharmaceutical company, the drug testing,
Right.
the split samples,
Right.
all that stuff.
Right.
But the wizard could have told you.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
The
yeah.
wizard could tell you
Right.
who the cheaters are, because it's so obvious. I could, it's not like I want to rat them out, but
Right.
it's right there. Like
Right.
I could tell you based on even speed figures. You get a horse claimed,
Right.
and he's running 60 figures, 70,
Right.
all of a sudden 90,
Right.
95. You know, back in the day, Lisa, I mean, I know everybody on the
Right.
backstretch. So many trainers.
Right.
I knew, you know, Charlie Whittingham, John Nehrude, you know, Mac Miller for Rokeby. They would have 20% win years. Alan Jerkins, and it was fantastic. They would say to me, Wiz, I'm having a great year, 20%. These were real horsemen. You would see now trainers that are winning 30%, 35%. And I could see when they claim horses how they improve substantially. So, you know, actually, I would be an asset because I could tell. I could tell you, look at this guy. I have a friend. People come over to me and they'll say needle or no needle. Like it fun.
Really?
Like oh yeah. Like
Oh, wow.
like big even people. That are in the breeding industry that are big, you know, is this guy juicing? I know, and I'm rarely wrong. And I'm not going to say a guy is guilty until I know he's guilty. And I don't need the drugs testing. I mean, yes, that happened. You need that, you know. But this game, I'm going to even tell you that why you need 5 to 10 years. The breed has changed.
Yeah. That's
Okay, so now we're talking, I'm an owner. I also own horses. So I see it from
Who
that.
trains for you?
Well, first of all, I went to, how I decided who to train for me is by the vet bills.
Right.
Okay, I had a train, I'm not going to mention names, but I would get a bill for $3,000 a month, $3,500. I'd look at all these medications. And I said, screw this. I don't want you. You're training on medicine.
Yeah.
You're not really training as a horseman.
Right.
I went to a guy, my bills now are $400 or $500 for maintenance medication, okay?
Right.
And that will tell you also,
For
sure. And all these drugs that they were giving, legal and illegal, right? Over medicating, and then the illegal drugs.
Right.
Over the course of the years that this has been done, it's hurt the breed of the horses. You used to have these hard knocking horses that lasted a long time.
Right.
They could run every 3 weeks. They love to run.
Right.
Okay, now you can't even get dirt horses to run fields, the field size.
Right.
A mile and an eighth race on the dirt, 4 or 5 horses, because they don't have the stamina. They don't have the bloodlines. It's affected the breed. Then what happens when you go and you breed a sire that you don't know is, you know, been juiced up over. So that's a problem too. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, people say that all the time. You know, like breeding is obviously a little bit outside of our like remit, but it makes a lot of sense to me because also, you know, the other really big priority, actually probably my number one priority, is reducing, you know, equine injuries, right, and equine fatalities. And I think the breed issue is very much a part of that as well. At least what I'm being told, they're not bred the same way for endurance, for strength, for durability. They're bred mostly for speed. You know, so I don't know if you think, you would know that better than I do. I don't know if you think that's also a factor with regards to injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it's a speed game, but the horses don't last long.
Right.
Do you know, I also buy horses in an auction sale. And before I buy, so I get a list of like 8 horses I'm interested in. Do you know, even in the breeding, at the sales, I vet out the horse. I'm not going to buy a horse unless I vet them out. The last sale I went to, I had 8 horses on my list. 6 I had to throw out because they failed the vet test.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, you don't have, and then you have the bigger trainers that have the better vets, and the Gina Antonucci's of the world are at such a disadvantage, you know, in this game the way it is now.
Yeah.
You know, so you have this.
So who trains for you now? You didn't answer that.
His name is Danny Leach.
Okay,
okay,
great.
He's a private trainer for my good friend Larry Doyle, who has Katie Rich Farm.
Okay.
So, and I never get a bill that's over $400, $500.
Wow.
But when you get an owner that has bills that are $3,000, $35,000, you know something is not right.
Yeah.
So where do you see Lisa Lazarus 5 years from now?
I think I see myself still doing this, but doing it with a little bit more comfort, a little bit less, a little fewer ulcers, maybe a few more gray hairs, maybe a few better nights of sleep. But no, I mean, as you said, I think this is a 5 to 10 year. I don't know that I'll be around for 10 years, but I think I'll certainly be around for 5. And I think the question, though, about like kind of the evolution of what we're doing is we're collecting so much data from veterinary reports, from basically information that we require, that in 5 years from now, I think we'll be able to use data almost not as good as you because you're the wizard, but almost the same way that you use data, obviously, to pick horses and all that, to predict, also to help us figure out who the likely cheaters are, and also the horses that are most at risk for injuries, you know? That's what I really see our kind of superpower to be in the future, is harnessing all of this information for the good of the industry.
Yeah, I mean, you have such a, because it's not, when I look at the word, you know, integrity, it's the integrity of the sport, not just medicine.
100%.
The betting,
all of it, for sure.
we see drops in odds, okay, that it's like putting a hand in your pocket and stealing your money. If you went and bought Microsoft at 134 and 134 and 2 cents, and you press buy and it's 138, you'd feel robbed.
Yes.
That's part of integrity of the game. Remember, it's perception, okay, and the perception of the, you know, horses breaking down.
Right.
That's, you know, we have more breakdowns than ever before. It's because of the breed, the weakness of the horses.
Right.
It's not the track surface at Churchill Downs. It's the breed. So the integrity of this game encompasses so much more
100%.
than just the medicine part. And it's the stewards. It's the, you know, we're having a lot of problems with the stewards in New York. There's, and like I said, the betting. You know, the horse players never get their voice, not as much as they should.
You know, I do consult with a number of different horse players, kind of off the record when we're creating rules and analyzing things. But you're right. I mean, my general counsel, his name is John Roach. He's based in Kentucky. He's a huge horse player, and so he's always reminding me that we're the customer. We should be the most important. So luckily, through his eyes, because you know, we interact all the time, I've kind of come to understand a little better how important the horse player is. But you're right, we need to do more of that, and you've just offered yourself up, I think, for
and I would look. I love the game. I live and breathe this game. I've seen it all. I hang out with the fans. I have Wiz Village behind the pizza grill, right?
Awesome.
Where everybody visits the wizard, right? And so I have a pulse on the player, on the blue collar guy. And I want this shit to change, and I thank you for, because you're highly qualified. You're, you know, I'm gonna call you Lisa Ness, okay? Not, you know, you're Mrs. Ness, because you clean this game up, okay? Because for all of us, because this game, before you came, it was, if you didn't come and your staff didn't come, give it another 5 years, it'd go the way of the way the trotters went before they started coming back a little bit. We need you to clean this game up and listen to, and you're going to make mistakes. We all do, okay? You know, but you're going to get it right. And just take a deep breath and know that, you know, it's a day-by-day process, and just listen to your instincts and your feel. You have all the information. You got the wizard, you know, on your speed dial. I'll help you. I'll help you.
So I want to go back to, you know, it's funny because I had I have an 18-year-old son, and he really wanted to come to Saratoga this weekend. He brought some friends. You know, they just graduated high school, and none of them were, you know, really knew much about horse racing or horse players. And so we went to the track, and it's just such a funny thing that they brought this up. You know, he places his bet, and he's like, "Mom, like, why did I, you know, was it 9-1 when I placed my bet, and now it's like, you know, 8-5. I had to explain to him, like, it's not fixed odds like you're used to betting on football or whatever, you know. But it's really, that's such a fascinating thing for me about how that all it's computer assisted wagering and all that.
It's basically outdated cable. It's not fiber optics. Okay. NYRA does a good thing. They shut off the wind.
Yes, they do.
Okay, not any of the other tracks do that. And that's just what I'm talking about, you know, having everybody a commissioner, which I'll gladly throw my hat in. And unity, okay?
Yeah.
And that's true. We know when we bet, the odds are going to change and it's not in our favor. Are your kids still up here?
No, my son went back, but I would have loved to have known you were around because they could have really used a tutorial.
Well,
so next time, if you don't mind.
Wiz Village is set up 40 days during the every
Amazing.
day of the meet. I have water. I have chips. I have
Water and chips. For an 18-year-old boy, you're good.
And I know the pizza grill guy, and he throws on extra mozzarella.
Yeah,
Okay, so your kids, not only your kids,
Yeah.
if you have some friends that you want to really learn,
Understand,
I will go out of my way for these people.
Thank
Okay,
you. That's brilliant. Thank you.
and please, if you want me. I'm there to
do.
help you because
I really do.
I will definitely tell you which ones to keep your eyes on.
That's great.
So thank you so much.
Thank
I hope
you
it
for
was a
having
little
me.
bit
It was
different
great.
kind of
Yeah,
interview.
it was. It was great.
I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
Thank you, Lisa and Des.
Thank you. Thank you.
Visit wizardracingsports.com and purchase now. Since 1986, the Wizard has been your source for the best handicapping products for the always challenging Saratoga meet. Wizard selections include analysis and wagering strategies for every race. Wagers are updated after late scratches. The Wizard wagers every day, backing up his opinions with his own money. Visit wizardracingsports.com and purchase now.
Welcome to Get Tied On, brought to you by Wizard Racing and Sports.com. This is the Gallop Out. It's time for the commentary. Michael, you can't walk away from it, can't close your eyes to it. The Whitney weekend was complex and emotional.
Probably the most emotional, hardest week that I've ever played in this game. Maple Leaf Mel was a horse that I had it narrowed down to 2 horses in an auction at Timonium 2 years ago that I wanted to buy. I was going to go to no more than $100,000. That was my budget on this daughter of sired by cross traffic. I got to $100,000 and I had to stop. The winning bidder was Bill Parcells, former New York Giants head coach. I was glad that he got it. I've always heard great things about him. Tough as hell as a coach, but as soft a heart as you could be outside the locker room. And he got the horse. It started last year, 2 races, won its maiden special first time out by the length of the stretch, came back the same meet, winning a stake race for fun. And Parcells took the horse away from Jeremiah Englehart and gave it to Michelle Giddings, the assistant trainer. It was named after Michelle, who comes from Canada. She's a cancer survivor patient, and she a wonderful young woman with a bright future. Parcells felt loyalty to her, gave her over the horse. She won another, I think, 2 in a row.
Right.
After the 3rd race, it was given over to her. She was not the favorite in the test, and she took the lead. She was going to win the race, and then we saw what happened. It was devastating for everybody that was at the track. I was right by the finish line. I saw it firsthand. You could have dropped a pin on the floor and you would have heard it drop. There wasn't a sound at the track. No one cared whether they won or lost the race. Nothing mattered, but the focus was on the health of Maple Leaf Mel, and unfortunately, she had to be put down. It was tragic for everyone concerned. It shows you the heartbreak in this game.
Right.
It tore everybody apart. After that, the day was over. They ran the Whitney, but that was an afterthought.
Yeah. I have very little to say on it. I was moved. I was in places where folks were weeping and hugging and holding on to each other in grief, and it was a sad situation. I would recommend Sean Clancy has written about the event for his column in the Saratoga Special. He's an Eclipse Award winning writer. He knows how to turn a phrase. Everything he penned in that article is appropriate in tone, sentiment, respect, and I would encourage everyone to go online to Saratoga Special and read that. Michael DeWhitney, interesting race. The story everybody wanted to read was Cody's Wish and Cody Dorman again, but it wasn't going to be, and it wasn't without some sort of circumstances either.
Well, the track that day, that's one of the biased days that I told you earlier about, where if you weren't 1-2, you were turning for home, you were done. Okay, and Junior Alvarado, who I had on 2 weeks ago, he called me that morning and he said, "Wiz, what do you think of the race? Who's the main contention?" We knew how he was going to ride the race. There was only one way. He was going to take back to last and make one move. Unfortunately for him, the gate opened up and the starter kind of had him. He didn't brake sharply. But I told him that the pace was not going to be fast, that the horse to eyeball was White Barrio, who I had selected second and knew the horse was a danger. I said that horse will be first over to take the lead over an overmatched Dale Roman's horse. That one you need to look at, and as he makes his move, you make your move. Well, White Barrio did make his move. He opened up. Day was done for Cody's Wish, who was just, not really taking hold.
Right.
He didn't seem right. For some reason, something wasn't right. He was all out for third, and he never was a threat. And whether it was the bias, the start, him not being right, he just...
They're horses.
Yeah, and a favorite, this time a big favorite went down in flames in a horse race from start to
Kudos
finish.
for trainer Rick Dutrow on the return, the resurrection, and the win.
Yeah, 10 years out, put out to purgatory, comes back, wins a marquee race in his first. He's been back training maybe 3 months, 4 months, and I'm really glad for him.
Yes, I think it's a popular win. And it's certainly something he can build on. And the most interesting thing is that, Safi Joseph had the horse. This horse had a lot of time off, but he had a ton of workouts, a ton of furlongs under him for this race.
Including that morning.
It is said that trainer Dick Dutrow blew him out 2 furlongs in the morning on Saturday, which is something he had done earlier in his career with Big Brown.
And Alan Jerkins did that all the time, and that's old school horsemanship. And he had this horse so sharp. He had a sneaky return first time in his barn, and he's a 2-turn horse, obviously, and one to reckon with down the road.
Earlier on the program, you interviewed Lisa Lazarus from HISA. Let's talk about your reactions to your time with her and some of the responses that you elicited from her.
I wanted to take a different tact with her. An extremely intelligent woman with a great resume, doesn't know a lot about horse racing, so it's depending on the professionals that she puts around her. She's going to make mistakes. She has. And I told her, and we both agreed, it's a 5 to 10 year fix. There's a lot that has to be done in this game. I didn't want to talk about it from the horseman's point of view, because that's all that's ever talked about. I wanted to talk about it from the gambler, from the handicapper, I brought to her attention that I could have picked out those juicers that they put away, like Navarro and Jason Service. I could have talked to her well before the split samples came back and everything. I said, hire me and I'll tell you who to go after. And I'd be very careful to pinpoint somebody. But I told her that, when you talk about horse racing integrity, it's the integrity of the whole game. Now, obviously, they're treating the horsemen and the horses for medication overages, and that's one aspect of the game. But there's others. There's what's going on in the betting, the late odds changes. There's the inconsistency of the stewards. So there's a lot more to the game than just what they're.
And she was open to that conversation and aware.
Oh, she even mentioned on the show
Right.
that her son made a bet and it was 5-1, and then whatever the odds were, and he said, "Mom, why is this horse 3-1 now after the wire?" And I said to Lisa, I said, "Tell your son, get used to having somebody put your hand in your pockets and taking money out of your pockets, because this is what the game has become." She's going to, if she's around during these 5 to 10 years. She's smart enough to know what to do, and it's going to get better. It has to happen somewhere.
Yep.
Okay, the start has to happen, and it's starting now. It started a while back. They've made a lot of mistakes, but I think they're going to get it right. And I told her Wizards for hire because I could help out, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Great interview.
So the wizard has gone from the wizard to the mentalist to paladin. Have opinion, will travel. Put a little pawn on the table, and you're going to have a new business card. That's going to bring us to the end of this show. We want to thank you once again for joining us. This is Get Tied On, brought to you by wizardracingsports.com.